Namaste and welcome viewers. Let's start with the big focus this hour. Prime Minister Modi met Bangladesh's interim chief advisor Modi-Yunus on the sidelines of the 6th BIMSTEC summit today. In fact, this was the first since Dhaka's government shifted last August. Prime Minister Modi, in fact, in this meeting pulled no punches. He reaffirmed India's support for a democratic, stable and an inclusive Bangladesh. But he also laid down a clear line. Rhetoric that poisons relations between two nations must stop. A pointed jab at Yunus's recent Beijing blunder where he pitched Bangladesh as China's gateway to the ocean and that India's northeast states were all landlocked. The Prime Minister then also stressed on a people-centric partnership and strict border security to curb illegal crossings, while also voicing serious concern over the safety of Hindus and other minorities amid rising attacks in Bangladesh. All of this, viewers, comes as relations between the two nations have soured since the interim government took over, with Yunus often seen cozying up to Pakistan and China. So what really happened in the meeting, the body language, everything we'll be deciphering on the show. And joining us right now, Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, Professor Madhav Nalapat, Vice Chair, Manipal Advanced Research Group, and PK Mishra, ex-additional DG BSF. To everyone on the panel here, appreciate you joining us right now. Veena ji, let me start with you now. Modi-Yunus, of course, has been cozying up to Pakistan, China, but his recent statement, he essentially stepped into a diplomatic minefield last week in Beijing, and today the Prime Minister, with the kind of statements that came out after the meeting as well, made sure that Yunus felt the heat.
I think that this was a good corrective meeting in the sense that our Prime Minister, and if you see the readout of the Indian side, makes it very clear that we have absolutely categorically in many ways read the Riot Act and explained to the Bangladesh side that all we want is a democratic, peaceful, and prosperous and inclusive Bangladesh. And what is happening now is none of the above. I mean, democracy virtually doesn't exist in Bangladesh. We've also said that we do not want any of this rhetoric, hitting directly at what Modi-Yunus said to the Chinese businessmen, saying as though they have control over Northeast India and asking the Chinese to come and extend their economy in Northeast India. And today we have even more disturbing news coming out where we are seeing that Bangladesh has given a contract to China to build a modern Air Force base in Lal Munir, which is near the Siliguri corridor, and Pakistan will implement that contract. It will be subcontracted to Pakistan. So these are security red lines. The Yunus administration at all times is crossing India's security red lines, and this is absolutely unacceptable to India. And more than that, we have to understand that the Yunus regime is not a constitutional legitimate regime. They are there only in a very temporary phenomenon. I do not think they're even going to be allowed to run the next election because they have taken political parties in the government. They are not a neutral non-party government, which is mandated for, if you want to be a caretaker government, you have to be neutral and non-party. But you have all the Islamist groups are now in the caretaker government of Yunus, which includes the Hizb ut-Tahrir, includes the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, the Hifadhat-e-Islam, and of course there is the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is behind them. So I think these are very serious concerns of the Indian side. But I must say that the Indian government is showing a lot of strategic patience in dealing with Bangladesh. We are, explaining this to them. We're telling them about it. We're not, losing our cool on it. But certainly, the Yunus regime has to be pushed toward the earliest possible elections with a neutral caretaker government, and then we will deal with the elected government, no matter who it is.
Absolutely. In fact, Professor Madhav, now, if you look closely, like Binaji also pointed out, Yunus's off-the-cuff pitch here wasn't just clumsy. If you look at the way Bangladesh is now trying to cozy up to China and Pakistan since August 2024, Prime Minister Modi's warning was unmistakable. India will clearly not tolerate meddling in its internal affairs, any sort of a rhetorical or any sort of a statement, especially from an unelected interim leader whose mandate should stick to fixing Bangladesh, not stirring India's pot.
Well, the fact of the matter is that Modi-Yunus has changed his tune, not only on the Northeast, which he correctly identifies the inalienable part of India, but that he will ensure that nothing that compromises India's security will be allowed. Now, this particular project that the ambassador is talking about is a very worrisome project. It certainly crossed the red line. And I think Prime Minister Modi has laid down some red lines. and they'll be more clearly identified to the Bangladesh side. And if they cross them, well, then action will need to be taken. One can be patient up to a point, but beyond that point, patience has to give way to action. And frankly, as far as India is concerned, patience will have to give way to action unless Modi-Yunus can keep
Right.
the promises that he has made in public, promises to India. And that includes a very important promise of respecting India's security needs. And this particular project does not do that at all. Allowing Pakistanis in without visa, allowing uh, Pakistani goods to be exported to India without any to Bangladesh without any check whatsoever. It opens the way for arms, etc., to come in. So, and I think Modi-Yunus is alluding to the reality that there has been an effort to infiltrate our northeast and with weapons, etc., and create problems there. So it's a worrisome situation, and I think the time is coming
Absolutely.
quite rapidly. If Yunus cannot keep his word, for strategic patience to be ended by strategic.
Absolutely. Interesting, Professor Madhav, that you talk about infiltration. This also has been, from what we understand, one of the key factors in the talk between the Prime Minister and also the interim chief advisor there from Bangladesh. And Mr. PK Mishra, now, there are two ways you can look at what Yunus said when it comes to the Northeast. One, you can assume, giving them a benefit of doubt, that it was just a marketing overreach. He just got carried away with the sentiments. And second, if you look at the project that Veena Sikriji was talking about here, and also the sort of cross-border infiltration that we're looking at right now, this is a serious security alarm. Do you think Indian government now, with all of these statements coming out as well, is much more alarmed than before?
Yes, I can well tell you what Modi-Yunus government is doing it. In fact, I will tell you that not only General Munir, he visited Dhaka, even the chief of ISI, he also had a visit to Dhaka. And what is being done in the border, what the project is being given to China, it is all China and Pakistan's interference in the border affairs of Bangladesh towards India. And what it was there during Begum Jia's time, I came to know that Chittagong Hill Tract is again hotting up. They are going to open jihadi training camps there, and illegal infiltration. Number one, illegal infiltration is continuing. Number two, they are in fact, they are not allowing BSF for construction of the border fencing. Number three, drugs. They want to send drugs, arms and ammunition. The worst part of it, now Pakistani and Turkey and Chinese arms have come to Bangladesh, and they are going to come inside. And not only Jamaatul Mujahid of Bangladesh, they are going to penetrate even AQIS and ISI agents also to Northeast particularly. And I will tell you, they are having already, China is doing problem in Manipur. Now, Bangladesh is going to start it in Mizoram and in whole of Northeast because of this project, and we have to be very careful. Earlier, there were only two countries where the border guarding forces were working together, and their operational movement, they used to go together. That is India and Bangladesh, that is BSF and Bangladesh Border Guard. And now Bangladesh Border Guard is behaving like a Pakistani force. They have converted to Pakistani force. I have seen it now in the border. I have gone to various borders now, last 6 months. And things are very bad in the border, and situation with Bangladesh border guard is very tense, and normalization is not there. And what has happened, a lot of Hindus, they were trying to come to India. We stopped them in Kuch Bihar border. We stopped them in here in Tripura border also, Agartala border also, and also in Malda border. Things are very bad in Malda border because a lot of ISI agents are operating in opposite to that of Malda. So, in fact, a lot of militant groups, particularly, it is not only Jamaatul Mujahid of Bangladesh, even ICS is also they are also operative in border areas. So we have to be very careful, and BSF has already been instructed to be very careful, and we are pushing our training companies also to be deployed in the border and to keep a watch. And those areas which are not fenced, unfenced area, and particularly riverine border, we are keeping a track on that, and a lot of drones have been provided to BSF BOPs, and we are utilizing it 24 hours to check what is all happening at night, the opposite side. But I can well tell you the behavior of Bangladesh border guards, they are absolutely like Pakistan. There is no difference, and their weapons have been changed. The worst part of it, they are getting
the
very
behavior
good weapons
that you're
from
talking of the
Pakistan,
Bangladesh border guards here, in a way,
way,
is also being triggered by some of the statements.
Yes.
PK Mishra ji, one of the behavior that you see there, it's also being triggered by the statements coming in from the politicians.
Yes,
Veena ji, I wanted to come in on this because India has maintained a very diplomatic stance. India has not really reacted, no knee-jerk reaction that has come in. But ever since August 2024, for example, I think even in December, suddenly you saw a surge in statements coming in from Bangladeshi politicians, even demanding not just Bengal, but also Bihar and Odisha. Mamata Banerjee gave them a fitting response on the floor of the House in the Assembly. Now, this has been a pattern that we've seen since August 2024. Now, when Modi-Yunus comes out and says that, yes, we want to work with India, how is India supposed to believe them? When back on their home soil, every single action, every single statement is completely opposite.
To believe what Modi-Yunus may say, because even his own government's readout of the meeting with Prime Minister Modi this morning, it's a very harsh readout. It doesn't say anything about good relations with India. It doesn't say anything about finding a diplomatic and negotiated solution of talking to each other. No, not at all. Right from day one, from August 8th, which is the day then when Modi-Yunus was sworn in on the Bangladesh constitution, he had been making one anti-Indian statement after another. As though he's under some great pressure, it's either the Jamaat-e-Islami or the Pakistan. It is a situation in Bangladesh is such that the forces that lost the 1971 war, which were Pakistan, the Razakars, the Jamaat-e-Islami, those forces are now in control in Bangladesh, and they want to pretend that 1971 never happened. And they want to go back to the days of East Pakistan with full colonial rule by the West Pakistan authorities over Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is allowing itself to get into this situation. The Jamaat-e-Islami, who controls Modi-Yunus, and the Hizb ut-Tahrir and the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, they are fully allowing this to happen because they want Bangladesh to become a hotbed of Islamic terrorism. And they've said, we want an Islamic caliphate in Bangladesh. This has already been stated on a tweet and later deleted. So we have to be very careful, and we have to be clear that the strategic patience that India has been showing cannot last much longer. And in any case, we must put a complete halt to such security-sensitive projects like the one I spoke about in Lal Munir Ghat. And we're not going to allow foreign and either Chinese or Pakistani nationals in Lal Munir Ghat or even in the Teesta River Basin on the Bangladesh side. This project on the Teesta, this water management project on the Teesta, is something that China has been exerting influence on Bangladesh even under Sheikh Hasina. But Sheikh Hasina did not agree to them, and she said publicly that this project for Teesta water management should go to India and not to China, which caused the Chinese to be very annoyed with her, and they treated her very badly. But now this regime has given it back to China. Now again, it means that the Chinese will be there right on the Teesta River, near the border with India, and it's a very sensitive matter for India. So I think we have to make it very clear.
What's interesting, Veena ji, is the China stance on it, and I'll come back to you for more on that. But let me also get in Professor Madhav here to talk to us more about this cozying up of Bangladesh and Pakistan. You're looking at Qawwali events, you're looking at cargo ships at Chittagong. What's this newfound love for Bangladesh? Is it a simple logic of enemy's enemy being a friend, or do you think that these two nations are now being emboldened with the fact that China seems to, in a way, be backing them?
The reality of the situation in Bangladesh is being made clear by both the other discussants. And the reality is that what is needed to be planned now, which I assume is being planned, is action. There is no question about it. And very strong action needs to be taken, because this kind of a security risk, if it's allowed to continue, it will create multiple problems, and we'll have to deal with it with about 10 times more effort That's
Professor
the
Madhav, when you
situation
say
now.
action, what action are you talking about?
I am frankly talking about, if necessary, military and kinetic means can be used to ensure that Bangladesh does not emerge as a threat to India. I think that is extremely important. And of course, the in between phase could be encouraging people in Bangladesh who understand the danger of extremism, what is happening,
But
another is a diplomatic
but then
offensive all
Professor
over
Madhav,
India.
does that not mean that India could potentially also be risking the status quo with China? Somehow, after a long time, we seem to have some sort of a normalcy when it comes to China. You even had President Xi there talk to President Mormo and speak about a dance between dragon and elephant as well. I'm not sure how in sync the dance would be, but as long as that persists, do you think India would want to jeopardize this calm with China? Because of course China now has a lot of economic interest there in Bangladesh, and any action by India in Bangladesh will also drag China into the matter.
Look, as someone who has studied China for a long time, I think they regard it as very important that the relations with India remain on an even and calm keel as long as the quote unquote Taiwan issue is not settled. Now, the calculations have been made, including by the CCP, that it should be done by about 2027. So I don't believe that the Chinese are going to jeopardize that particular detente with India uh, for the sake of creating additional leverage on India through Bangladesh. They are creating a lot of leverage, negative leverage in many other ways. But I do not believe that they will respond in a forceful way to any action taken by India. So, which is why I think, if possible, with other countries who are allied to India, and that's why I've been calling for a mutual security pact between India and some of the large democracies. I've been calling for ensuring that the Quad becomes a mutual security pact. So if one country is attacked, every country in that group responds. And I think that is very important because,
Absolutely.
frankly, there are some actions that need to be taken, and these actions cannot be cosmetic, they have to be kinetic.
Absolutely. In fact, Mr. PK Mishra, one of the things that Prime Minister Modi also in his tweet after the meeting also raised is India's serious concern, demanding the safety and thorough probe into the atrocities and the jailing of minorities, particularly Hindus. Do you think this is something that Bangladesh is genuinely working on, or do you think it's just now a cover-up of a secularist government that they used to come to power, and now that they're in power, essentially, they just don't want to do it?
Yes, I can well tell you whatever Mr. Modi has spoken, he is absolutely correct in telling that the Hindus are being, particularly the minorities and Hindus. A lot of violence took place when Modi-Yunus took over and Sheikh Hasina was ousted. And I will tell you, I have seen when I visited the border during that time, thousands and thousands of Hindus who were removed from their houses, they came to the border, they wanted to cross over to India. It went to that extent. We mostly more than 5,000 to 6,000 houses of Hindus were burnt. They were ransacked. A number of most of the Hindus were removed from their services also in Bangladesh. And I will tell you another thing I will add here. Though it is a very small issue, in Chittagong and in Cox's Bazar, in all the five-star hotels, they are full of Chinese, PLA leaders are now camping in Chittagong and Cox's Bazar hotels. That is a confirmation I am giving it because I have got my, anyway, I don't want to tell my sources. They are there, and the weapons are coming in Chittagong port from China also for Bangladesh army. It is not coming direct from Pakistan, but through China to Chittagong port. And Chittagong is now the fulcrum of JMB, fulcrum of AQIS, fulcrum of ISI, and fulcrum of PLA. We have to be very clear, very cautious about Chittagong Hill Tract, Chittagong border, our Mizoram border with Bangladesh also. Things are very bad, and I know the way they are coming up, we'll be facing a lot of problem. But
Mr.
anyway,
Mishra, we are
BSF
of
is
course hoping
showing
that the Indian government is
restraint,
keeping
and
a
they are not
close
opening
eye on
fire.
that.
They are not
And
opening
I'm being
fire.
told we've only
Yes.
got a couple of minutes on the discussion. So before we wrap, a quick question to Veena Sikriji. Veena ji, a couple of minutes on the broadcast. Now, this was a meeting that Bangladesh had been requesting from India. There is, when you look at it, there seems to be some sort of a strategy from India now giving cold shoulder to all of these neighbors who are now trying to cozy up to China or even Pakistan. For example, we're looking at what's happening with Nepal. Nepal also, from what I understand, has been asking for a meeting with the Prime Minister, and India still hasn't granted it. Mr. Jaishankar still hasn't greenlit that meeting as well. So do you think India is now sending out a strong message that if you want to come to the discussion table, it has to be all hands on deck, and you cannot really have any ulterior motives?
Absolutely. I think this is very clear because India is seeing that China is actively interfering in every South Asian country. We know what they did with Pakistan. We know that, higher than the mountains, deeper than the seas, friendship between China and Pakistan. We know what they did with Sri Lanka. But then they abandoned Sri Lanka. When the problem came and Sri Lanka had an economic crisis, China was nowhere on the scene. It's India who bailed out Sri Lanka. So like that, with Bangladesh now, they are really trying very hard to take a full hold. And I fully agree with what Mr. Mishra and Mr. Madhav Nalpat are saying, that this is a very serious matter for India's security, which cannot be ignored. And I think this meeting today that Prime Minister Modi gave to Modi-Yunus was to lay the red lines right there on the table, that these are our security red lines. You cannot fool with the minorities in Bangladesh. They have to be looked after. They had to be given equal treatment. You cannot fool around with the security of India's border. That's very important. And you cannot mouth all this anti-India rhetoric. This is absolutely terrible because they are like, running with the hares and hunting with the hounds. It's a very difficult, dangerous situation in Bangladesh. And if this influx of arms through the port of Chittagong continues, I mean, you're going to have a situation where Bangladesh will be full of weaponry and they're going to use it against India. We do know that they've shown these maps of Bangladesh and Northeast India, all because of the greater Bangla. We know what their intentions are, and we have to act in keeping with those intentions before it is too late. So I think that the red lines have been laid down today,
Absolutely.
and I think that see for a short while whether Bangladesh is going to observe these. I doubt very much because Yunus is on his own trip. He only wants to stay in power, and he thinks as long as he has China and Pakistan on his side, he doesn't care about anybody else. Let's see how long that works.
Absolutely, absolutely. Veena, everyone's of course flashing these images of a firm handshake by Prime Minister Modi, but I was reading a couple of Bangladeshi outlets and newspapers as well, and they seem to have gotten a message that it's not just a firm handshake, but it's also a firm message that is being sent out by the Prime Minister of India there about everything that's happening and how India is keeping a very close eye on that. Veena Sikriji, Professor Madhav, P.K. Mishra, really appreciate you joining us on the broadcast here, putting more light on what's really happening in India's neighborhood and how